The Toa have defeated the evil Skull Grinder. Beneath the ancient city, the protectors discover 6 elemental creatures. Umarak the Hunter is attempting to trap these creatures. The Toa must gain new powers in order to unite with the creatures and defeat Umarak. This is Bionicle Week 3, United for Battle. Day 1. Tahu, Uniter of Fire, and Ikir, Creature of Fire. Hello, this is Soundout here, and welcome back to Bionicle Week. This is Bionicle Week 3, United for Battle, where we'll be taking a look at the Winter 2016 wave of LEGO Bionicle. We have finally made it to the second year of Bionicle, and here we are with 6 Toa, 6 small sidekick characters, and a villain. Sound kind of familiar? Well, it kind of does, but there's a little interesting set that mixes this up. But we're not too worried about that right now. We're actually looking at Tahu, Uniter of Fire, and Ikir, Creature of Fire. These two work together in a very special way, and much like how I reviewed Narmoto, Protector of Fire, and Tahu, Master of Fire last year together, we're doing the same thing here. Each Toa has a corresponding creature, and we'll be reviewing those in the same video, as opposed to splitting it all up, so that way, in 7 days, I will do 7 reviews, and review everything for Bionicle 2016 thus far. Now, when looking at the packaging, there has been a couple modifications. First of all, the mask of creation that used to be up in the corner has been replaced with the mask of control, which is interesting because while we had to wait for the mask of creation until the summer wave, the mask of control is actually in this wave. And it has also got a sickly green color going throughout the entire logo, which is really interesting. Also, on the packaging, on the top, there are these symbols. This one looks suspiciously similar to something else, which we'll get to in a bit, and this one is a very new symbol. There's also symbols on here, which you can see are the same as Tahu's. Really neat correlation with packaging. You can also tell that they have names for the creatures printed on the box. I think that there was a trademark restriction for the first year Bionicle, as the protectors did not have their names printed on the box, but now all the creatures do, and that's really cool. Also, taking a look at the packaging, there is some neat little bits here. First of all, you do have Tahu's golden mask up here, and you can see Tahu being attacked by a couple traps over here. You also do see the trap and the creature over a lava pit. On the back, you can also notice the geared function, and all these little other details like, oh look, they combine? On Tahu's box, you can see over here, Ikir's being attacked by traps. Tahu's like, yeah, I gotta get my mask. He's got his mask, which shows creature, Toa, combined. Plus another trap that's gonna get him here. Very similar to the 2015 packaging, which is not a bad thing because the 2015 packaging was very dynamic and very nice to look at. I never got tired of seeing it in store shelves, which is really, really cool. Also, of note, the packaging for 2015 was very thin. A lot of the boxes were really, really easily to get bent and smushed. These are a lot sturdier. Like, if I did this to a 2015 box, it would just bend. But this is a lot sturdier cardboard. Think kind of the Mask Maker and Skull Grinder set cardboard, but for everything. These are really sturdy boxes now, which is really cool. Now that I spent enough time on the packaging, we won't spend this much time on the packaging for the rest of the week, I promise. Let's take a look at Ikir, Creature of Fire. So beginning today's reviews, we'll be taking a look at set number 71303, Ikir, Creature of Fire. I think the pronunciation is Ikir. It's I-K-I-R, so no idea really. We don't have any spoken vocal dialogue pronouncing this name or any guidebooks or such right now as of the recording of this video because the Bionicle Netflix series has not debuted and there's nothing else to go on. So here we are. So let's take a look at the set. First thing I want to talk about is the trap he comes with. Umarak the Hunter is looking for the creatures, and in his search for the creatures, he is setting these little traps. And these traps are a lot more interesting than last year's Skull Spiders, which were basically a mask with 4 legs attached. This is a trap with 4 legs attached. As you can see here, there is an eyeball in the middle there. The trap itself is hinged, so it does close all the way. So if you want to have a little creature here running around, you know, looking pretty innocent, and then, you know, it's just going to set the trap, and the idea is that, oh, there's a creature, and it walks around, and, oh no, it's been trapped, and it's got a trap hanging on it. That's the idea behind it. It gives a neat little extension of the main villain to each creature set, and they do not get repetitive. As you'll see in the following reviews, these are not all the same thing like the Skull Spiders were. Also, the Toa do not include any traps, so there is that little thing. But overall, really neat. Cool new trap pieces as well. Really, really like that. Let's take a look at Ikir himself. Now, Ikir is a firebird, obviously. Being a creature of fire, he does have some nice flame pieces, the same ones that were used for Narmoto's swords. He also does have these new elemental blade pieces that are used across the 2016 line. You can see the piece of Unity here on his chest, which features two sockets, and we'll take a look at what that does later in this review. And overall looks really nice. You can see he's got a couple tail feathers back here. I do like the feet because they're clawed in 3 different places, plus they do have a bit of range of movement. Speaking of range of movement, this guy is highly articulated. He's got 2 ball joint connections here, which means his neck can move all kinds around. And this really helps with the combined mode as well. Over here on the wings, you can see that they have ball joints here, as well as being able to rotate up and down here. The hips move, rotate, and the ankles pivot, plus the back talon moves around and can fold up like that if you want a different look, plus the front talons can move. Now, the main functionality of Ikir is that he does have a geared function. What's really nice is that the Protectors had the 6-dart gun, which isn't special anymore, but these guys do actually have a geared function. For Ikir here, it is you move the tail feather and it moves the wings back. This kind of puts him in a perched position. You can have him kind of perched up, wings back, or you can just use this as a hinge. It's really nice. It's nice and sturdy. It doesn't flop around. It is a very good gear piece, and you can see that it allows you to have a wing flapping gimmick pretty much, which is pretty cool and pretty effective overall. I really do like the way that Ikir looks, and he has a neat build. And being 77 pieces for $10 is not bad at all. Overall, Ikir is really cool. Here we have set number 71308, Tahu, Uniter of Fire. Now, this is an upgraded version of Tahu, Master of Fire from last year, and features a brand new build. Something interesting is that in the past, you had the Toa Nuva, which were minor upgrades of the original Toa. They brought in some new parts, but overall we're basically the same figure, but with some slight modifications. Tahu, Uniter of Fire is a completely new figure that features very few parts in common with Tahu, Master of Fire. So before we take a look at Tahu himself, there's something I do want to point out. If you notice on here, and this goes for all of the Uniter Toa, there is a symbol in the middle of the chest, and in the middle of the forehead of the mask that looks very familiar to longtime Bionicle fans. You can see it's got 2 lines jutting down. This symbol is in fact the Tahu Nuva symbol from original Bionicle. This is interesting because Bionicle 2015, Bionicle 2016, the Generation 2 of Bionicle, is supposed to be a reboot according to some sources. But this is obviously a Nuva symbol is obviously on this figure. And the Protectors summoned the Toa using a Mask of Time that looks very similar to the original. I'm not really sure this is necessarily a reboot in a full reboot sense, but only time will tell before we find out any more on that. But for now, we can take a look at Tahu, Uniter of Fire. First thing I want to point out is that he is very slim. Outside of these 2 pegs back here and this gear, he's got no real back kibble. There's really nothing going on in the back here. This is partially because of the uniting gimmick with the creatures, but also just provides a very sleek-looking robot. Now, when it comes down to the figure's colors, he's primarily gold instead of primarily red. In fact, there isn't any red parts on him except for these bottom leg panels and a couple red pins here and there. The rest is all orange or trans red. So it's really interesting. Outside the mask and those shin pieces, there is no red on this guy, while Master of Fire Tahu was primarily red. But as you can see, he does have a very trim body. Something of note, the chest piece is a single part this time, which works really well, and you can see just how thin he is. He doesn't have all the gear functions in the arms. And that leads to point 2, articulation. So articulation-wise, he's got a single jointed neck, shoulders, elbows, wrists, hips, knees, ankles, and waist. Yes, that's right. The 2016 Bionicles introduced for the first time, I believe, in construction history, a waist joint, which is also his geared function. All 6 Toa and Umarak the Hunter feature a geared waist. This is incredible because this now opens up so many possibilities for posing of these figures. Because you can have a body spun like this, and now you've got a very dynamic pose. This is also a neat gimmick because you can just have them swing back and forth, kind of like the Rakshi. But that's about it. The Rakshi had an upper torso. They didn't really have a spin on the torso, but they move their arms back and forth. These guys move their arms back and forth, plus their entire torso. It's really, really, really great engineering. Also, what's fun is you'll notice his fire swords here do look a little different. They have 2 blades to start, plus a gear that turns and collapses it down. It's kind of a neat thing. It's not easy to remove his weapons, though. You have to disassemble them to get them off of his hands. But as you can see, just a kind of little extra function there. Also, to that point, as you can see, there is a stick end here, and there is a plug here, which allows you to have Toa Tahu go all Darth Maul on everyone with a double-bladed weapon that he can swing back and forth. It's really neat. It does bridge the gap between the 2 type of Toa weapons that we see this year, and it is really neat overall. Now, lastly, there is one other piece this guy comes with, and that would be a golden Mask of Fire, which is now partially trans red. While this is partially silver, this is partially trans red. And it looks really nice overall, and it fits his color scheme a lot better than the red mask. Minor complaints that I do have with this set. I think the hips are a little thin, armor-wise, but that is just because there's nothing up here to connect with that. And these random blue pieces here, I cannot figure out what their purpose is. I guess it was just to get to 132 pieces instead of 130. But it's really odd to see these. They're just there. I think they're supports for the ankles, but why couldn't they be trans orange? Or, you know, like those are. Why can't you just include 2 more of those instead of just 2 random blue things? The only blue it matches is the blue in his chest. Kind of a weird thing, but overall, Tahu, Uniter of Fire, is really, really cool. And I gotta say, he's probably one of my favorite sets from New Bionicle. And in terms of comparing him to his predecessor of this generation of Bionicle, here is Tahu, Master of Fire. So you not only see that Uniter Tahu is much taller than Master Tahu, you can also tell that just the slimness of the fact that you don't really have much going on in the back here, but that's okay because on Tahu here it all jutted out. Plus his arms were kind of awkwardly back. This is a much more natural body proportion. While here it always looked like his arms were a little far back and his head was too big. That's partially because of the mask. They use the same headpiece. That is also another big change. While there's these large stems on the back here and the masks would come off kind of easily, they did modify them on the new Uniter Toa to be a shorter stem in the back here and makes it a lot harder to remove the mask, which is nice, especially when you had things like Skull Basher where the mask would fall off all the time. Overall, I would definitely say I like Uniter of Fire Tahu more, just for his simpler design and just overall cohesiveness that looks a lot better. But I will say that Master of Fire Tahu has a better color scheme in that it doesn't have the random blue bits. Overall, though, Tahu, Uniter of Fire, is quite fantastic. But of course, there's a reason I'm reviewing Ikir, Creature of Fire, and Tahu, Uniter of Fire in the same video. So using the piece of Unity on the back here, you can connect Ikir, Creature of Fire to Tahu, Uniter of Fire. This is so much better than the combinations between the protectors and the Toa, as those required disassembling the protectors. Now the instructions officially state, all you need to do is take this piece here, and those there, and just attach it straight on like this, and then bring down the creature's head onto Tahu's, and give him an extra battle helmet. And there is United Tahu. I'm calling it that for now because I don't really know if there's an official name. It's not published anywhere, and the Bionicle website still hasn't been updated yet for this year's stuff. So here we go. This is the new combination function. Unlike Protector of Fire, where you had to take off all his weapons and plug them onto Tahu, and it was very weird, this is just simply click onto back, and you can adjust wings. I also like to take and fold up the talons here, since they do fold nicely. I do like to fold up the legs to get them a lot cleaner, and just to make this overall combination look better by just having these folded up and positioning them on his back right about there. But that is up to you how you want to do that. What's great is that the geared function is not interrupted by the combination, as it, still swings. And also, the head articulation is not restricted, as those two different ball joints on the helmet piece allow it to go as far as it possibly can while also being a helmet. So you get some great posing options out of Tahu here. You also have it over his eyes, or you can have it above his eyes. I kind of have above his eyes most of the time. And you can see that these two work cohesively in color scheme, in style, and it gives Tahu wings, which is pretty cool. Only complaint I might have is a little back heavy, but that's what happens when you put a whole other set on the back of another one. There isn't a whole lot of weight in Tahu's legs, and it does cause him to fall backward quite easily. But overall, as a step up from the Protector and Toa combinations of last year, this is just insanely better. It is really cool to see how far they have developed Bionicle in just a year. And that really is what summarizes Tahu Uniter of Fire and Ikir Creature of Fire. They are basically Tahu and Narmoto upgraded and involved. Now, while Narmoto and Ikir are not the same character, the whole idea of a smaller set combining with a larger one and working together as a cohesive team, it works so much better here on the Uniter series than it did for last year's. And I gotta say that it's a lot easier on shelf display space in that the creatures are smaller. They can form backpacks, so if you can put them up against a wall, you won't have to worry about putting 6 other figures in front of the Toa. You can have them behind the Toa, which works really well. Overall, I am really happy with how these two turned out. And if you're going to pick up a set to figure out, do I really want to try out the creature connecting, uniting gimmick? Do I want to just buy the Toa? Do I want to buy the Toa and the creatures? And I'm not really sure if I'm digging this gimmick or not. What is the best way to find out if that is the gimmick? Well, it's not actually buying these two. If you're trying to figure out if you like the idea of a Toa and a creature combining, stay tuned for tomorrow, where we took a look at Kopaka, Uniter of Ice, and Malum, Creature of Ice, who come together as one set. Anyways, stay tuned for more Bionicle reviews here on Soundout 12, as well as other reviews, and tomorrow, when we continue Bionicle Week 3, United for Battle. Till next time, this is Soundout saying goodbye.